Cash flow is the lifeblood of any business. You have to have a good grasp of what your cash flow is going to look like. It has to be predictable. So just keep that in mind. Learn the business, or as much about the business as you possibly can before you buy your first property, because you will be amazed at how many things impact your decisions as you're buying a property, making the conversion, and spending the money to a renovation, to an end product, which is intentional, and then how you go live and how you market it and operate it. Those decisions can't be undone, can't be unmade after the drywall is up, all the insulation is in, the furniture is in. You can't undo those decisions you made during acquisition where you're ignorant, and not ignorant mean, ignorant, I didn't know, uninformed about what you were buying and how it was going to be used for your operating side of the business. So think about it in your business as your own co-living practice and your co-living business. Your acquisitional arm has to pass a baton to your operational arm. But if the operational arm is the one that makes the revenue, don't you want to hear and understand what they need so that it can inform what you buy? That's the way I look at it. That's the way I hope more people start to look at it. Because if you set yourself up with a property that has the highest opportunity to be profitable, you will be a property and co-living operator that scales. If you're making money, and the byproduct of what we do in our business when we make money is put on more affordable housing so people who need affordable housing receive it, then guess what you're going to do? You're going to buy another property that is profitable. Remember what I said? No margin, no mission. Hi, my name is Q. Over the past 4 years, I've had the pleasure of working with hundreds of co-living entrepreneurs, from Philly to Kansas City to Phoenix. I've helped them build sustainable, profitable co-living businesses. Many originally came to me and thought they simply owned rent-by-the-room rental properties, and that the platforms that they were working on would handle everything. My views around the importance of acquisition, how important it is to your entire business. One of the first things that I want to talk about is, do you understand the importance of having an understanding operational knowledge of your existing co-living business or the co-living business that you want to open up and operate? Everybody, and here's the stories, people rush into buying a property. And it makes sense in the very beginning. You just want to get involved. You want to get into the game. So you learn the things that you need to learn, and then you jump right into the business of, I'm going to acquire a property, and this is the most important thing. What I've found over and over again is that the failure of a lot of new investors, especially to co-living, it stems from the fact that they're taking information and guidance from people that don't know the co-living operational business that controls the revenue side of your business. When I tell you operations and acquisition are on two diametrically different parts of the business model. During the acquisition phase, it is so easy because you control all the dollars. You're the one spending the money. So it sounds trivial, and I don't mean to make it sound trivial, but when you're the one writing checks, you're the one that everybody wants to answer to. They're telling you the things that you want to hear, possibly, and hopefully it's not the case, but you hear the things that make sense so that you can move on to write the next check. You should buy a property. Here's a story. You should buy a property that's fully renovated because you have less renovations on the backside. To a new investor, that makes a lot of sense. To an existing, experienced investor, that's the worst thing I can hear. Why? Because that person, unless you have a full understanding of real estate financing, if I buy a $300,000 property at market rate with a realtor for $300,000, and they tell me they did a great job negotiating on my behalf, and they got it for $280,000, I still have to put 20% down. So for round numbers, that's what, 28 times 2? So it's $56,000 without closing costs. So now you're into $65,000, $70,000 initial closing costs to get into that deal. And then when you go to refinance it or take out a loan, they'll only give you 75% of the appraised value. And if you bought it at retail price, there's no equity. The only equity that you have is the money that you put into the deal and possibly the $10,000 or $20,000 that the realtor got for you. Unless the deal makes sense mathematically, in our world, that $70,000 that you spent out of pocket to close on that deal, there are different ways to minimize those dollars left in the deal. That's the way I view it. And it's, many people do it so many different ways, but I'm talking to the new investor who is just starting out. You want this pool of money that you've spent years building up. That's your dry powder, as people would say. How do I utilize that dry powder in the most effective way so that I can start building a portfolio If you spend your $100,000 of hard-earned saved money and use it all on one property, then the problem that you're running into is that you're going to have a really big problem scaling because you can't pull any of that equity back out. That same $100,000 is stuck in that first deal. So as you start running and operating this business, if it's a fantastic deal, you make $1,000 a month. That same $100,000, if you put it into the hands of an experienced investor, they would recycle that money because intentionally they know enough to go after distressed properties where they're buying it much lower than what the end appraisal is going to be. Because from a lender bank perspective, the bank is the one that's going to give you a loan against the final appraised value. So I'll give you a perfect scenario. Last property I bought, we purchased it for $217,000. We ended up essentially putting $103,000 with all of the extra things that I wanted to do during the renovation. But the after renovated value, ARV, which is the appraisal amount that the bank is going to use, the DSCR lender gives me 75% of the appraised value. The ARV for this house is about $420,000. I don't necessarily need to pull all that equity out because that dictates my mortgage payment. But in this case, I'm going to pull back $300,000 out of this loan, out of this house value. I have a house now worth $425,000. I'm going to take out a mortgage roughly $300,000. Now I get the $300,000 given back to me. Whether you use hard money to do this, whether it's your own money to do this, at the end of the day, I only have $20,000 left in this deal. But now I own a $400,000 asset with a ton of equity. So in this world, I know I have 25% equity because the bank's only lending me 75%. But in this example, I'm extracting out all of my capital that I put in. If I use a hard money lender, I'd pay them off, but I'm only $25,000 into this deal or $20,000 left in this deal. And I own this asset worth $425,000. I can recycle that same money, rinse and repeat, and build the second property. You have to understand how financing works and why it's so important. And it's really easy. If I were to lay this out in a step-by-step process, is go buy the house, go renovate the house, go furnish the house, go activate the house, and start collecting money. It sounds really neat if that is the simplest domino way of doing it. I believe you should learn the operational business well enough because it will impact the things that you learn and utilize in the acquisition phase. If you have a better understanding and nuance of the member, your customer's experience, what kind of rooms do they like? Which rooms fill the fastest? Why do I, as an investor, put more bathrooms in houses than most people? Why do I look for houses where I can add more additional bathrooms? Why is bathrooms probably the most singular important thing when I look at neighbors, neighborhood, and bathrooms? Why are those things so important to me? Because they directly impact the revenue. Without consistent revenue, you're going to pay back every single person that you owe money to along the path. So why is it super important that you learn the business first? And in this case, my suggestion is you go do HostIQ and do that module first so that you have a good understanding of the operating business, because the things you learn in that, what are members looking for? Which rooms do they look for the best? How do I set it up the best? How do I set up this house with amenities and things that stand out for my paying customers? If I have those learnings, now I know what I'm going to look for in a house that's going to be successful for my business. And it's not just 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 1,800 square feet. No, it's about how this physical property that I'm going to pay for and how I'm going to convert it to this end product is going to appeal to the customers who are going to pay me revenue. Because I just want you to understand, during the acquisition, conversion, and construction phase, you're the one writing all the checks. It's the easiest phase. And it's so terrible when I say it out loud like that. But if I'm the one writing all the checks, it's really easy for me to write a check. What's the hardest thing about co-living and operation of a co-living property? It's collecting rents. It's collecting revenue. It's being able to have a pro forma that matches my actuals. What's the point of having this amazing pro forma that says you're going to make 30 to 35% on your money, and then you run an entire business at 50% occupancy and you're half of that and you're losing money? I can't tell you, of the 3,000 hosts that are out there, there must be over 1,000 hosts where their pro forma doesn't match their actuals. Why? Because the assumptions that they made going into our business did not live up, because they did not understand the business that they were getting into. So now they spent a year, and it's 9 months to a year figuring out, oh my God, I better figure this out or I'm going to go out of business. Because a serial entrepreneur, the one thing that I can communicate to you, cash flow is the lifeblood of any business. You have to have a good grasp of what your cash flow is going to look like. It has to be predictable. So just keep that in mind. Learn the business, or as much about the business as you possibly can before you buy your first property, because you will be amazed at how many things impact your decisions as you're buying a property, making the conversion, and spending the money to a renovation, to an end product, which is intentional, and then how you go live and how you market it and operate it. Those decisions can't be undone, can't be unmade after the drywall is up, all the insulation is in, the furniture is in. You can't undo those decisions you made during acquisition where you're ignorant, and not ignorant mean, ignorant, I didn't know, uninformed about what you were buying and how it was going to be used for your operating side of the business. So think about it in your business as your own co-living practice and your co-living business. Your acquisitional arm has to pass a baton to your operational arm. But if the operational arm is the one that makes the revenue, don't you want to hear and understand what they need so that it can inform what you buy? That's the way I look at it. That's the way I hope more people start to look at it. Because if you set yourself up with a property that has the highest opportunity to be profitable, you will be a property and co-living operator that scales. If you're making money, and the byproduct of what we do in our business when we make money is put on more affordable housing so people who need affordable housing receive it, then guess what you're going to do? You're going to buy another property that is profitable. Remember what I said? No margin, no mission. This is how those two things interlock. The better we do as entrepreneurs who do co-living, the more affordable housing that we get to put out into the world. Let me tell you a story about Buy Box. Okay. I've watched so many videos on YouTube. I've watched and scoured over people that want to talk about what is the perfect buy box for a pad split. And I see this beautiful little, one pagers on, 3-bedroom, 2-bath minimum, 1,800 square feet. You don't want to have a septic tank, and you don't want to have a neighborhood that has an HOA. Yes to all of those things. The question I would ask new investors, do you know why we say these things? Do you know why when people say you want to have no septic tank? That's kind of logical, right? Is that if you take a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house that's built on a mechanical septic tank to service the 2 bathrooms and the 3 people that could live there, or 3 to 6 people that could live there, and now we turn in the living room and the dining room and possibly a garage. Now the septic tank is not mechanically set up with the leach fields and everything else to handle 6, 7, 8 people living in that house. Don't get caught up in chasing specifics, because you have to understand the process. While these things are minimally required, you need to understand the nuance of why these rules are put into place. You need to have a better understanding of how they impact your business downstream. So no, we don't like septic tanks. Do we have hosts that have septic tanks? Absolutely. With every rule, there's an exception. We've got a wonderful host in Atlanta. He was one of our first ones, and he had an entire portfolio. And a lot of them were outside of Metro Atlanta. They had septic tanks. So what did he do? He had to change his operational philosophy on how he managed the septic tanks. But in the normal scheme of things, if that's not what you're used to, and if you're a new investor and you're looking at houses, don't buy a septic tank. Why? Because you're the one buying the property. And I promise you, there will be other properties that fit all your needs. Just keep swiping. Have an opportunity to go put a better deal in front of you. Do not suffer from FOMO or FOBO, fear of missing out, or fear of a better offer. Buy what your business needs. Okay. So what are the things we don't like in our buy box? We don't like terrible parking scenarios. Some people, hey, my house is real close to a bus line. I don't need parking. What if you have members that have cars that want to live close to there? No parking? Well, that reduces the number of customers you can have. What are we in the business of? Filling rooms, keeping members in the rooms. So poor parking spots, bad neighbors, HOAs. Why do we not like HOAs? And in some states, I have hosts that are in Houston, Texas. They tell me they ignore the HOA laws because those HOAs are not as stringent and they're not as legally binding as some other cities. I personally would just choose a property that's not an HOA. Avoid it. Why put yourself in a pickle for a fight later that's going to come back and jeopardize your business. As Charlie Munger says, it's not about being the most innovative and doing all these bells and whistles. It's about identifying what are the things in your business that are going to kill your business. Getting a lien from the HOA that says stop doing co-living in shared housing, that's a deal killer. So let's not do that, right? We can avoid that situation. There are plenty of houses out there in the markets that you're looking in that don't have to be an HOA. Don't force feed a bad deal. And the ones that come to me and I have other investors like, oh, I've got this creative financing deal, but it's only in this HOA, but the entry fee is so low. Great. You can go buy that property, but you better be prepared for the backlash and the downside risk of what you bring in. My investment philosophy is reduce risk. De-risk where you can and give yourself the biggest opportunity to make solid revenue that's predictable. What else do we not like in the buy box? Not a big fan of pools because it's just more additional maintenance and it's more additional insurance. It's not that I don't want to provide an experience of a pool. That's a line item on a P&L that could be profit. My insurance goes up because I have a pool, reduces my profit. If I have somebody that falls in and wants to sue me, that reduces my profit. It increases the risk of my business. I know plenty of hosts that are in Arizona and Florida and they have pools and they make it work. Every rule has an exception. They accepted that risk going into it. Poor parking, not a big fan of. Houses that fall outside of our parameters. If you're trying to jam in 8 bedrooms in a 1,200 square foot house, just ask yourself, would you want to live there? Here's another quick tip for people to consider in their buy box. If you have a realtor that you're working with is trying to sell you a house in a neighborhood that you do not know of, ask that realtor to go sit in the driveway at 9:30 at night on a Friday or Saturday night and call you for 35 minutes and get on the phone with you. Have them answer the question, hey, if my daughter were to live in this house, do you think she'd be safe there? Why would we want to buy a house that's a fantastic deal on an Excel spreadsheet? But then when we actually go sit in the driveway, it's scary as hell. When I have investors that come to me and they say, hey, this property, it was a fantastic deal. All the numbers made sense, but I'm not making any money. And we go look at the occupancy and we talk to the members who are there. They move in on a Friday, they move out on a Saturday. They move in on a Tuesday, they move out on a Thursday. Why? And the feedback is, I don't feel safe. The neighborhood is really scary. We are in the business of providing safe, quality, affordable housing for our members that want to move in and stay over a period of time so they see value in what they're paying us for the rental room with all utilities and amenities included. But now when you take out the safe part, I don't care how much value you have. Nobody wants to stay there. So bathrooms are really important. When you get into the granulars and you walk through these properties in the buy box, you want to consider the ease of conversion. A lot of houses that have multi-stairs and multi-levels and split levels, the conversions of those are really, really difficult. There's some other ones that people will tell you. So little nugget to consider. If you're in Florida or if you're in a market in Texas where you're on raised concrete foundations, that gives you easy access underneath the floorboards. So if you want to increase the number of bathrooms, it's cheaper. If you're in Florida and it's a ranch style without any basements and you have to punch into the concrete to add in more piping, it's really expensive. These things make a difference. So the houses that you're setting up for, if you can't envision the business that's running consistently for 3 or 4 or 5 years without issue, you're probably going to end up losing money in that deal or struggle to be cash flow positive because those properties run the full length of time. You have to understand, if I get disruption in revenue, whether my neighbors complain and go to the code enforcement, where the parking situation doesn't work, where for some reason the bathrooms collapse. If I have a 8-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, which we've seen a lot of in our first generation of houses, what happens if one bathroom breaks? I've heard hosts say, like, yeah, I don't live there. I know, but your paying customers do. And then I've even heard worse scenarios where a washing machine breaks and they're like, that washing machine's under warranty. So it takes them 2 weeks to go process this claim with their insurance company or their warranty. So what about the 8 members in the house? Can they not wash clothes for those 2 weeks while you're sitting there arguing with these are all different things to consider, but think about it from the lens of the person living in the house. It's really important. All right. Financing, real estate financing. Probably the best lesson that I've learned in my 4 years with PadSplit has been my education about how real estate is financed. You hear all of these amazing things like DSCR loans, or you think about debt to income ratio, or you hear about like ARVs, and you hear about market rate rents. All of these things are learnable. Okay. Like I have a kid in college, the stuff he's learning in these classes, I'm not really sure how it applies to business. So when we have you know, questions and conversations about what's important, it's really around what's applicable, what skills can you take with you? This skill here, it's very technical. Learn the rules of the financing. Call the loan broker, call your lender, get on webinars, learn what DSCR loans are, debt service coverage ratio loans. That's the lifeblood for real estate investors that are looking to scale their portfolios and use income for the property versus your personal income and debt to income ratios. Credit scores are important in this scenario, but if the property doesn't pencil, they won't give you the loan, thank God. We know plenty of people who buy houses with traditional loans that are just not good for co-living, but they can give you the loan. Having a big loan on a house that doesn't cash flow for the business that needs to cover the mortgage, that's a problem. Understand the financing. My rule of thumb is you need to understand each step of the financing process. From acquisition, what kind of loan are you going to use? What are the requirements of that loan? So let's go down the path of a scenario. If you are going to buy a house with cash, that's how I buy my first couple properties. I was lucky, right? I just happened to have a pool of cash and a capital partner where we can go buy a house for cash. So the first house we went to, we bought it for $183,000. We did a big expensive renovation. That's a whole different story for another day, but I learned a lot. I paid a lot of tuition in my learnings, but we did a big renovation. And then we wanted to go and do a cash out refinance against the ARV of the house. So we bought it at 183. Let's say we did 100 and some odd $1,000 in the renovation. We got the ARV to come in appraisal at $330,000. We took out a $260,000 loan. That was our capital that we put back in the kitty, and that's the money we used for the next property. What were the requirements for the loan to say yes? We had a problem that we didn't know about. Because we put in cash to go buy the house, there's a concept called seasoning. Buy properties with your own capital in your own cash, and you want to take out a refinance or cash out refinance, there's a seasoning period that's required to leave your money in there. And if you do that, well, then your money's locked up. In the scenario that we had, we were lucky, unfortunately unlucky. The project took forever. So we actually overcame that seasoning period. The reason I didn't use hard money in this deal was because we didn't know what the renovation was going to look like. I didn't want to pay 12 or 13% on hard money. And this project lasts for 6 to 7 months. That would have been a disaster because I would have had so much holding costs. So all of these things that I'm talking about are really important for you to understand. How are you going to finance it? What kind of vehicle are you going to use? Are you going to use hard money loans, which are on average 11 to 13% with 2 or 3 points? If you don't know what those terms are, just go to YouTube and just start questioning. What's a hard money loan? What are the terms? How do I understand the rates? What do the points mean? What do the origination points mean? All of these things are important because if you don't understand that real estate, it's just math. That's how people make money. They make money on the arbitration and the spreads in between. You need to understand the system well enough so that you can play within that sandbox. So some loan products are better suited for certain types of projects. You ever heard of a lipstick flip? So if I go buy a house, like things that are just aesthetically ugly, changing a countertop, changing the cabinets, taking out carpet and repainting the house, really quick fixes. A lot of fix and flippers or investors would use hard money because they know that project's going to take 4 to 8 weeks and they're going to be back on the market to sell it. So I can borrow money at a high interest rate because I'm only going to pay it over a course of time. One of the things that people don't realize when they get into our space, my God, is the biggest killer of all. You have to understand that if your project goes overtime and extends, you're paying 12 to 13% for every single day, every single month that this project extends. Those are called holding costs. Project doesn't have enough juice in it to cover those holding costs. Guess who's paying? This guy. I don't want to pay those. So some loans are better suited for certain kinds of project. If it's a big ass renovation where it's going to take a long period of time, find patient money. Whether it's a private money lender, whether it's do it all cash, don't use hard money for those projects unless the spread on that thing is so big that when you go to refinance, you could cover all those closing costs. Everything has a caveat. There's no hard hard and fast do's and don't rules, but you have to understand the nuance of real estate financing. Simply ask, hey, I'm going to have to use a DSCR loan at the end. Contact your lender. The ones that want to work with you and build relationships, have them walk you through that process. This is real money that you're talking about. Don't waste it because you're ignorant. This is something you can learn how to do. This phase we're going to talk about is underwriting. This single idea has put more real estate investors, especially co-living investors, in trouble. I cannot tell you how many real estate investors that are new and some that are even experienced, and they have no idea why their underwriting doesn't match their actuals. And when I look at it on a spreadsheet, it's really sexy. If you know that your key performance indicator or your key metric that you're using to make a decision on a buy, if it is a percentage cash on cash return, which means that like after I take out all my loans, how much money is left in this deal? In my case of the transaction that I spoke of earlier, if I buy a house for $200, put $100,000 in renovation, or let's say $125,000 in renovation, it's now approves at $400 as a appraised number. The bank's going to give me $300,000 back. I have $25,000 left in this deal. If I'm making $75,000 on the house in gross income, that's it's a 3-to-1 return on my cash on cash return. So it's like you have to understand these numbers, they mean something to somebody, right? But you have to understand, are they realistic? I like to tell new investors, conservative underwriting leads to better sleep, which leads to lower heart rates, which leads to less aggravation. If you're pleasantly surprised every single month because your house outperformed your pro forma, you bought it correctly, you operate it well. If you're extending and stretching, your underwriting to make you feel more comfortable buying a deal, you're just setting yourself up to get kicked in the wazoos. Do not buy a house on hopium. I'm going to tell a story so that it kind of resonates. I met an investor who's working with a realtor in a new market like Charlotte. And I asked them to send me their underwriting document, and I'm reading it, and it said 8% vacancy. Like, that's really interesting. So I met with the realtor, and the realtor told me, yeah, this is amazing. I looked at your market numbers online at padsplit.com, and they said in Charlotte, there's 92% occupancy. So we took that average market number that PadSplit published, and we underwrote all our deals at 8% vacancy. Time out. What in the hell does 8% vacancy mean? The PadSplit numbers that you see out there are market averages. What's 8% in a vacancy? That doesn't make any sense for me. When I underwrite a property, I do it realistically, meaning that this last house that we have, there's 9 bedrooms in this house. And not even all 9 bedrooms are priced the same way. I use vacancy based on number of bedrooms in the house, which means that I try to buy houses that are close to 50% of occupancy or 50% vacancy covers my PITI. That means that the mortgage is taken care of, at most 50% of my doors. In this case, it's about 40 some odd percent covers my PITI. So that means that I have 5 rooms out of 9. So if 4 rooms cover my mortgage, I have 5 rooms to cover the PadSplit fee, property maintenance, utilities. I have enough room. This is the part that I need you to just take away from anything. If you take away this one thing, co-living owners and operators, our net profit, the money we put into the bank, it only comes from the last bedrooms that are filled and stayed and we collect rent on. This house is 9 bedrooms, okay? The first 4 pay the mortgage, insurance, and taxes. The next one will cover utilities and PadSplit's fee for 8%. And now, so that's 5 bedrooms. I have 4 bedrooms of profitability left. So that means that 1, 2, 3, 4 on average, let's say $800 a month, it's $3,200 of potential net profit. But if I only have 5 out of 9 filled, I'm sleeping at night because some other people are paying my mortgage and they're paying my fees and my utilities. I'm not writing a check. So if you're looking at your property and you're like, my God, I need 6 out of 7 to break even, then you're praying to God that last bedroom gets filled because that's where all your profit is from. And take a look at your properties. Tell me how many of them are 100% filled. So why would you underwrite your deals to be so aggressive where you need this many? This is where people, they start getting crazy on the spreadsheets. So what they do is they're like, wait a minute, if 6 bedrooms is good, look at 8 bedrooms. All right, we need to convert the outside Florida room into 2 more bedrooms. And then we can do that. And we're going to put 2 mini splits in there. And now your renovation costs for your house just went through the roof because you're chasing more bedrooms on your spreadsheet. Well, what impact does that decision have? That means that you're going to get a worse rate because now the cost that you need to get out of your project to finish, maybe that's over what the average market rate rent is. And now your DSCR lender says, hey, you don't meet the 1-to-1 ratio. We either have to have you bring more money to the table to close, or we're going to go ahead and reduce, instead of giving you 75% of the approved value, we'll give you 60. Every decision has a financial decision. You need to be aware of, if I make this choice on spend, what does that mean on my financing? If I make this decision on more bedrooms, what does it mean for my occupancy and tenure? This is what I mean about, like, if you understand our operating business, it has such vast impacts on how you acquire and underwrite conservatively so that you can make money and therefore be motivated to buy and build and construct another property, which allows you to increase your wealth and increase your cash flow. These are the parts that are really, really important. I want to talk about renovation. Renovation. Why are renovations so important? When I work with new hosts that bought a property based on limited information that they knew, and they brought the property to us and say, hey, this thing should convert to a 7-bedroom, 2-bath. Okay. Now the question is, how did you do your conversions? I'll give you a specific example. I have 3 of my buddies that are students of mine out in Phoenix. They brought a property to me. They got it sub 2. He's a sub 2 wholesaler. What they did was they had a property they acquired. The numbers seemed to work for them. It was a 10-bedroom, 3-bath. And the first thing we did was, when we looked at the property, we started going through it virtually. And I was like asking them, hey, tell me about this. What are your decisions around conversion? Because they were already a couple steps into it before they came to our mentorship. And at the end of the day, I just asked them questions around, what do you think the member's experience is going to be like? In your mind, how do you want to brand yourself? What kind of experience and member experience do you want to put out into the world through your products, in terms of the rooms that you're renting, that you think are going to check off how you want to run your business and your thesis for how you want to operate your business? Little sardine can rooms, 8x10. You can have 2 more of these in your house, but what benefit is it doing if somebody moves in, doesn't like it, and moves out? It's just high churn, high turnover. What they ultimately came to when they asked themselves these questions is, they came back, instead of a 10.3, they actually ended up at an 8.4. So they took a space on the other side, they put another bathroom, they converted one of the areas that they were going to split into 2 little tiny bedrooms and made it 1 master suite, increasing the price that they were going to charge for that, because they started to learn, wait a minute, somebody may pay $300 for this room, or $325. And it's literally a little in-law suite with kitchenette, bathroom, their own refrigerators, everything in there. That was the first room to rent, as it always is. Once they started realizing and understanding the revenue side of their business, it had huge impacts on the renovation side. I know historically, when I've watched, the old videos about what is PadSplit and what direction do people give you, and they'll tell you, no couches, no common spaces. It invites people to sleep over. And I listen to these people who are talking, and I know them. I know them personally. And they don't own any co-living properties. They're reading off of some nonsense crap that was written in 2019 or 2020. It has been 5 years since we've been in business. We have houses that are converted Airbnbs that have putting greens, swimming pools, selfie walls. That is not the product that was put out there in the beginning. You need to ask yourself, am I just listening without thinking? Do I have an idea of what kind of business that I want to run? I will tell you, my brand, my portfolio, we always have a common space. I encourage the members in my house to get to know each other. I encourage community in my house. Why? Because as an operator, it reduces the friction between people if they know each other. It extends the tenure for those people if they know each other. It increases the patience for stupid crap that's going to happen on an everyday basis if they know each other. So that personal relationship might be the difference between a move out request because somebody was making noise, somebody wasn't cleaning the kitchen, versus in my world, they'll just talk to each other and talk through these little things that flare up without it turning into a massive conflagration and a massive forest fire that burns everything down. It's a different way for people to consider. I'm not telling you my way is the best way. I'm just showing you that my way can exist in our world. It's a dynamic marketplace like Uber. I love that analogy for us. Uber Share, really cheap. Uber Regular, it's what I expect it to be. Uber Gold or Uber Black, I expect a higher quality car, a little bit more customer service. If I can set the expectations and deliver that to my customer, that's the business that I want to run. And in my world, I want tenure for good members that are going to stay and pay for a good period of time, because that is the most optimal way that I make money as a co-living operator on the PadSplit platform or any platform. Tenure is the key. If I have constantly people moving in and moving out, moving in, moving out, I have to pay the 10-day fee all the time. In my houses, I get more internal referrals because people aren't embarrassed to invite their friends over. When their friends come over, they're like, wait a minute, this is what co-living looks like. This is what $900 a month gets you, all utilities included. And they're like, yeah. So my members are using the hashtag rent smarter when they're posting about what we're doing. Don't even get me started. I'll spend another module talking about how to create a business on top of our platform for members and for hosts. But my members are not embarrassed about living in my house. They will tell their friends, look, I'm just smarter than you. You're paying $1,800 for a shady apartment. I'm paying $900. I live with 6 people that are now my friends, and all utilities and everything. It's one price per week. So that's the big differential. That's a different way to consider your renovation ideas. Walk through the house and kind of see and understand the decisions you make during the renovation phase have a massive impact on the operational side of your business. I'll leave you with this one little tip for renovation. If you're going to put the money in to put a new bathroom, see if there's enough space to put another bathroom right next to it. So instead of having 2 bedrooms share one common bathroom that you're putting in, maybe you can turn those 2 bathrooms into 2 private bedrooms. It gives you more revenue optionality, whether it's a master suite at $250 a week or double occupancy for a couple at $350 a week. But you know that master bathrooms fill the fastest. The learning about the renovation things is 5 feet by 8 feet is all you need to put in a bathroom. If you have the space, instead of trying to cram in another tiny little bedroom, you may consider putting 2 bathrooms adjacent to each other, because it reduces your cost for the second bathroom because all the piping has already been laid. These are questions and these are learnings, and everybody has tuition. I have tuition that I've paid through ignorance tax. Right? I write down the things that I've learned so that when I go to my next property, when I look at it, I look to avoid those big hits. And now I get better and better. And now I have a system that I'm looking for. The framework of my acquisition is very much revenue centric, reverse engineer backwards to what I'm trying to buy. I understand that I have to get through the financing first, the renovation of it next, and then activation and operations. Those are essentially the framework that we always talk about. Understand your acquisition from the business side first. If the revenue that you think you're going to get can't consistently project to return, then you can't pay for all of these things that you made on assumptions. That leads me into the final piece of it, scaling. If you're coming into our space to become a co-living operator and you're doing it simply based on the idea that I'm going to have one property, my suggestion to you would be don't. Those hosts that have one property are the most miserable. They don't want to do it. They don't want to manage it. They don't want to, keep an eye on it. They have to hire a third-party property manager to handle it. That's essentially 10 to 12 to 15% of your net profits go to a property manager. You don't make any money unless you bought it amazing and you bought this thing in 2008 and you don't have a note. You don't have any mortgage. It's really difficult to have one property. Come into our space, get as much education as you can, buy it correctly, learn how to operate it, either with a property manager or without. If you're going to get a property manager, you better buy better. If you buy it poorly and then you got to stack on a property manager, how do you make money? We only make money on the last couple bedrooms after we pay everybody else. So keep that in mind. You can scale in this business. It's one of the easiest things to do. Once you have a business model that works, You go buy more houses that fit that model. And then you start learning and learning and learning and buying better, buying deeper. Your skills as an acquisition person get better. You buy better deals. You learn how to say no. When the realtor responds back and says 250, no. I'll give you an example. One of our students is in Kansas City. It was her first purchase. So she went and found a property. We did all the buy box things, and we did all the revenue projections and all the underwriting. The house is listed close to 170. And she came back and she's like, I'm going to put in a strong offer for like 155. And we walked through it. I showed her some additional tools. You can go on PropStream. You can see how much mortgage is owned on it. You can see how many days it's on market. Here's the thing that she was uncomfortable with. I do not want to offend the seller. Let me tell you something. The only person you need to worry about offending is yourself. Because if they say no to you, you're the buyer. You're the one with the checkbook. You find the next person is going to say no to you. This is not rocket science. You don't have to buy that house. So she ended up coming and we were talking about it. She said she wanted to offer 155. I told her, I think we're going to offer 130, because I saw how much was owed on the mortgage. It's been there for a while. The projections were really kind of aggressive in terms of the renovations. Like, we need more buffer. They ended up settling for like 131. And it was amazing because she was paying in cash, or she ended up using a hard money, which is essentially paying for cash. And it saved her $20,000 on the buy just because she was uncomfortable putting in a low number. Because she was fearful, what if they say no? I'm like, my God, what if they say yes? Every transaction, every at-bat, you're going to get better. Don't worry about who you're going to offend. Your job is to put yourself in the best deal possible. And to do that, you need to take reps. So if you're in the acquisition phase and you're not underwriting deals every single day, 2 to 3 to 5 deals a day, and getting in the habit of starting to see these numbers over and over again, you start realizing, $240,000, that's like $2,200 in mortgage. Like, certain things start making sense. Well, I got 8 bedrooms in here. Well, what's the utility? So that's probably going to be about $700-800. So it's about $100 a room. These things start aligning and become familiar so that when you're looking at deals and you're underwriting them, you know that score. You've been in rooms with other realtors and other real estate professionals, and they're running off numbers left and right. As soon as I talk to a new investor and they don't know their own numbers, that's when I get really nervous for them. This whole business is just math. You have to know your numbers. You have to know what's acceptable. You have to know which levers are a problem on the revenue side, on the cost side, on the tax side, on the liability side. You have to be able to know if something's wrong over here, how do I move it and fix it to improve? This is the beginning of the year that I'm recording this. And this is going to be a lesson for all of you. If you haven't gone back and done a real critical analysis for 2020 or the previous year, how do you know what to improve on this year? If you went back and looked at all your numbers from last year, how do you know what you're improving on this year? You don't. So don't go through another year where you're hoping. Hopium is not a strategy. So here's to you. Welcome to being here. Welcome to continuing your education. My mentors, the ones that I rely on, are constantly learning. Take inspiration for everything around you. Ask. Keep putting yourself in rooms with other people so that your education continues to grow. Welcome to CoLivingiQ. Welcome to becoming a co-living operator. I'm super excited for you to join this journey. Congratulations.